Okay, good morning, everyone. I see we still have people coming in, so let's give it a few more minutes. Okay, it seems attendees have already stabilized. All right, so first, good morning to everyone, and thank you very much for your interest in joining us in our fourth OCRE webinar. So today we will provide an update on the preparation for the tender, the research community's requirements so far, the requirements gathering is still ongoing, and how research and higher education institutes can join the tender and benefit from adoption funding available. So today we will start off with an overview of OCRE and the opportunities by David Heyns from GEANT, who is a cloud manager and will be the coordinator of the tender and adoption funds efforts. And then we will go into the requirements gathering activities and what has come out so far, where we have Joao Fernandes from CERN and Antonio Romeo from RHEA. And then again, David will take over and talk a little bit more about the tender and the funding opportunities. Following this, we will have a Q&A session where I would ask everyone to please leave your questions until the very end, of the discussion regarding the funding opportunities and adoption funding, just in case some of your questions might be addressed by some later slides. So how do you do the question and answer portion? Just please send your questions via the chat, and then we will address them one by one. So without further ado, I now pass the floor to David Heyns. David?
Great, thanks, Rob. Are you able to see my presentation?
It's not yet there. Let me see.
Yes.
Okay, that's out.
Okay, great. Right, welcome everybody, and thank you for joining us. I'll be giving you a little bit of a background on the project, and the OCRE project essentially came about to stimulate the use of commercial cloud and observation services in European research. GEANT is working very closely with CERN and other partners who do provide the cohesion between the suppliers of these services and the research community. Okay, essentially, it's driven by the fact that Europe is the largest producer of research data in the world, and the European Commission wants to increase the use of this data and interconnect research IT infrastructures through the European Open Science Cloud, so EOSC. So we partner with EOSC. As EOSC evolves, these services will be made available through the EOSC portals, and navigation will become even easier. Why does this initiative help the EC increase the use of this data? Really, the interconnectedness and the interoperability between these platforms and tools drives innovation across the research community in Europe. We are part of the EOSC cloud project, and we receive funding from the EO under the grant agreement mentioned. We are focused on infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, and software as a service, commercial cloud offerings. And the software as a service will essentially relate to the infrastructure and platform solutions that will be available through the OCRE framework. And I'll explain a little bit about that shortly. And then the Earth observation commercial services that are currently leveraging the DAS platforms will also be made available through the framework. OCRE aggregates requirements and demand of the research community into a public procurement tender to establish ready-to-use agreements with capable cloud and observation suppliers. Okay, essentially all of these suppliers will have been vetted as part of the tender process. They will have all checked a number of boxes in terms of GDPR and other kind of framework requirements. They will provide secure services, and you can certainly reach out to us for more information on that. It will support the individual institutions and buyer groups to buy these cloud resources. And over the duration of the project, a lot of money has been made by the European Commission in terms of adoption funding. So it's really to kind of stimulate the research community to use these tools that will kind of provide the agility and flexibility in terms of innovation and research in Europe. Okay, yeah, as I said earlier, the service providers in terms of Earth observation will be those providers that do in fact consume off of the DIAS platforms and provide services and tools to the research community. They are available to the research community directly, but will also be available through the OCRE project. And essentially, the research community will be able to procure without going out to tender, and this will make the consumption of these services a lot easier. On this, for the researchers, easy adoption, we will incorporate the commercial digital services into your activities by means of the framework and kind of easy adoption and easy procurement, and allow you to really understand these services and tools through the discovery and acquisition processes. For service providers on this framework, it's easy delivery. You have access to the research community through the various mechanisms in place in Europe, and we provide the way in which you reach and meet the needs of this community, the way you meet legal, financial, and technical requirements in that through the tender process, we vet your platforms and ensure that they are fit for purpose. And then the project will continue to drive the adoption of digital services and close the gap between the supply and demand sides. So the project will play a very active role in bringing researchers together with the service providers of tools and platforms that will better enable their research. As I said, the benefits for the suppliers is an efficient route to market. They are selling through a framework, not responding to tenders. In being on this framework, they automatically reach the 10,000 research institutes across Europe. So the benefits for the suppliers are massive. And the benefits for the researchers is that the project vets and validates the cloud and Earth observation services to make sure that it does check all the boxes in terms of data privacy, contracting, billing, technical integration, support, and special pricing. So the use of these services becomes a lot easier to the researcher than if they were procuring outside of a framework. As I said, the project is integrated with the European Open Science Cloud. The Science Cloud will provide for navigation through to these services, and it will be a lot easier for the researchers to consume. There are ready-to-use agreements in place across all the participating countries in Europe, so there is no need to run your own tender and get involved in a lengthy public sector tender process. Also, in driving research and innovation in Europe, it's important that the European Commission, it's important to the European Commission to provide adoption funds available to really stimulate the consumption of these tools and services. Rob, that's all I've got from my side.
Hello. Yes. Okay. So sorry, my microphone was off. Now we will go and look at the requirements gathering. And first up, we have Joao Fernandes. I'm going to hand you the floor now.
Okay, good morning, everyone. I hope you can hear me, and I hope you can see my presentation. So as Rob, and thank you, Rob, for the introduction. Thank you, David, for the introduction as well for OCRE. So we are going to talk about the research community requirements collected up to now. It will be myself. My name is Joao, as Rob said. I'm the activity lead from CERN in OCRE, and my colleague, the project analyst from OCRE, Marion, will also follow me on the presentation. So just to give you a bit of context, CERN is actually involved in this project in two main, let's say, categories of requirements gathering. So we have the requirements gathering of this buyers group, and you will hear about this, I think, still today from David, where CERN will probably lead a group of organizations. And also we are involved very much on the requirement gathering for cloud credits distribution to raise adoption to individual researchers. So essentially, some of you probably already use or are aware of what cloud credits mean. So these are credits free at the point of users, so they can be distributed to individual researchers for their use and for their needs in terms of using clouds for their research activity. In OCRE specifically, we are doing this work with Eurodoc and the Marie Curie Alumni Association. And what we'll show you today is the results of this first requirement gathering in order to have vouchers available from September this year. So how was the data collected? So we have concrete and very nice relationships with Marie Curie Alumni and Eurodoc. So we worked together in creating a survey for end users and researchers from different levels of maturity on their research activity, from PhD students to professors. We used these channels and we did this concretely in several stages. So we sent the first stage, we did the first stage of distribution and requirement gathering with the 25 Eurodoc ambassadors that are basically also students that are representing other students, and then they can pass the word also to the other PhD students. We advertised it on all their channels, Eurodoc and Marie Curie Association channels, and we have a second stage that Maria will talk about as well. That will be this week on the event of the Marie Curie Association Researchers Meet the Innovators in Berlin, where we are going to talk more about this and to disseminate more this survey. So the initial step, or the first stage, got us 65 replies. Has been run between April 1st and May 31st of this year, and has been used and has been the results have been used for a first analysis of the requirements that we did together with Eurodoc and Marie Curie. And so for the research, for the survey itself, and since the research has been done by my colleague Marion, I'll just give her a floor and she can go through the results that have been gathered.
Thank you, Joao. So I would like to start by letting you know which is the profiles of the respondents. So of those 65 people that responding to the survey, and we made the first analysis of the requirements based on that. So those students are mostly carrying their research in European countries. You can see the list of the countries in the World Cloud on the top right of the presentation. There are majority PhD candidates, so about 43% of them are PhD candidates, and a big chunk of the respondents are also postdoctoral researchers. We have quite a nice gender balance, quite equal, with a majority of women, about 60% of women and 40% of men researchers. And those researchers are doing the research in various fields, going from agricultural sciences to archaeology as observation. So a widespread in terms of fields of research. If we go to the next slide, we will see, going to the core of the survey, what are the requirements, what are the results we extracted from that. So we asked the researchers what was their level of expertise with the commercial cloud services. And it was interesting to see that about 60% of them have already some experience with cloud services, commercial cloud services. 34% have no experience at all, and a minority, less than 10%, have a lot of experience with commercial cloud services. Based on that, we asked them what they would like to do if they were given a voucher to access commercial cloud services. And you see the two bar graphs in blue on the bottom of the slide. The one on the left shows the answer of the people that have already some experience or a lot of experience with commercial cloud, so it's more technical terms. And the one on the lower right shows the answers from the researchers that had no experience with commercial cloud. And if we merge the two together, we get 4 top categories that are interesting for the researchers. So they're interested in compute, in storage. They also want to manage their data and see their data, see the research data. Okay, I'm gonna do the next slide. So it was interesting to make this analysis and see that most of the researchers we contacted through Eurodoc and Mercury have experience with commercial cloud. They are mainly using currently Dropbox, Google Cloud, and WeTransfer. And based on that, we could analyze what they want to do if we give them a voucher, if they have access to commercial cloud. And that was the first step, the first analysis, but we want to go deeper and collect more data. So we will do a second stage of gathering the data and analyze the requirements. And as Joao mentioned earlier, we will present this result and encourage more researchers, mostly from Marie Curie Alumni Association, at the event on Thursday in Berlin. And we hope to have a sufficient amount of more answer to do the new analysis. And then what we want to do once all those researchers have received the vouchers and have used it, we want to go back to them and get their feedback on their experience using the voucher to access commercial cloud services. So that's what we have for CERN on the requirement gathering activities. So I give back the floor to Rob to continue. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Joao and Marion. Very, very insightful. Now we will go to RHEA for an overview of some of the Earth observation requirements gathering activities. Antonio, the floor.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. And I'm here to talk to you about the requirement gathering for the Earth observation community that together with Trust IT, Earth Scan, Even Flow, we are carrying on in this month, and we are carrying on also in the next month until the tender will be published. We structure our requirement gathering in a set of different activities, and we are targeting both the research community and the supplier community together, requirement from both and feedback from both. We are set up in place a set of dedicated webinars and meetings and workshops to meet people and get their requirements. We participate in a set of conference. We also identified some champion user in which we interview to go a more in-depth understanding of their needs. This is especially for the users community, and also we set in place some online surveys. For what concerns the workshops and conferences, we already been at the meeting of OCRE meeting in Utrecht, but also we participate to the EGU, to the Living Planet Symposium, and to the Expand EO in Bruxelles, and also to ERSL last week. And we're also planning to be at the FI Week and the East Day 11 in Florence. Still, both to get requirements from the user community, but also to raise awareness of OCRE and the possibility the OCRE offers to the researchers. For what concerns the online surveys, we put in place 2 questionnaires, one dedicated to researchers and another dedicated to service provider. there are a few but detailed questions to get an understanding of the needs and get feedback from providers. And to thank all the participants, we will also have a raffle at the end to assign a drone as prize to one lucky contributor to these surveys. We also, thanks to TrustT, launched some one-question surveys on Twitter to get some insights, but also to raise the awareness of OCRE coming and get some feedback and stimulate a bit the discussion in the community. And as I said, we had also identified some champion users. Up to now, we contacted 18 people and interviewed 13 from 8 different research domains that you can see here below. So we go from geodesy to atmospheric research, polar region, food security, urban, and so on. This is an overview of the all the surveys, all the research activity, requirement collection activity we are doing. So we see we have a good coverage of West Europe, but we are also trying to get more users and more involvement from Eastern Europe. And you can also see the research domain that we have involved in our surveys. It's quite a few. Then let me share with you some preliminary results of this requirement gathering exercise. You try to synthesize the key findings. Many users don't trust in black boxes, so the algorithms that will be available for the Earth observation services should be recognized by the scientific community. There should be documentation explaining what they are, how they work. The reprocessing of data sets, it takes a lot, almost half of the research time. The use of cloud and the parallelization that cloud offer will really help the researcher to boost their research. Another important finding is that we have the requirement to use Copernicus data, and that's very important for the research community, but it's not the only kind of data that they are interested in. There are also different data sources, like the one provided by ESA, the NASA, but also in situ data that, if offered by Earth observation services that runs on DS, will of course be well accepted and welcomed by the research community. Other important thing is that not all researchers are IT experts, so the fact of having possibility to scale the algorithm that they are developing in an easy way offered by the service provider will be, of course, something that will boost their research. Other important thing is that we have to take into account that the researcher want to publish their results and collaborate with other researchers. So the possibility to share data produced using the services, and also the fact to make the experiment that they are doing really easy, really reproducible, would be really welcome by the community. Other important thing is that the vendor lock-in is perceived as a threat, so it's important also to offer the service using a standard way of access, standard API, so that it's easy for them to move from one service provider to another, and API for common services. Some of them are, in fact, to be able to launch a processing service, to search in a catalog, to get the visualization of data, for which there are already some standards going around that can be easily provided by the EO service provider. Also, the IPR protection is a concern for the community, so it's important to have clear terms and conditions and technical measure to avoid that unauthorized people are able to access the algorithms and the data produced by the researcher in these cloud-based services. And also the data provenance certification is an important factor. So the offering of predefined Earth observation derived data set should be well documented, and that also have to offer metadata. But the important thing is that EO-based research is extremely variegated. We have seen in different domains that are based on Earth observation data. And so we will have to cope with different array of technical capabilities needed, and also specific service that depends on the research domain. All these things will be we will take on board in the tender documentation. For what concerns the technical capability, we identified 5 main categories. So we go from the data processing services, when there is an algorithm already available online, and the scientists, they need just to select the data, maybe some parameter, and they can launch the service at scale. There is the possibility to host algorithms on a, let's say, cloud-based platform or Earth observation oriented, which also then of course offer the access to the raw data. Also the possibility to perform data analytics, mixing Earth observation data, derived information for Earth observation, but also other information, other data coming from different domains. As we said, important for the scientists is the fact to share data into public and to publish their results. So also data sharing publication functionalities are very important. And last but not least, also the possibility to perform some interactive development on a cloud-based platform using Earth observation data is really important, just to understand a bit more like Jupyter Notebook offering or what offer Google Earth Engine. And of course, all of these should be powered by one of the DSs. For this reason, one important factor we think in this offering is the possibility to have a processing platform which can help to bring on the cloud Earth observation based services that maybe now work on a specific data center or in some company workstation. There can be this cloud-based platform can help to move this offering on the cloud and therefore be eligible to the tender. This platform usually offer API to invoke main basic platform services like processing or the access to the catalog, and usually take care of all the scalability. So for Earth observation service provider, what they really need is to provide their algorithm and have some agreement with this processing platform provider to move their algorithm on the cloud. And of course, I mean, this platform also help in select the data set and offer a lot of services for the user that increase their experience. And of course, as I said, the important key factor is that these all enable an efficient migration to DS. And that's all from my side, Rob. So back to you.
Thank you very much, Antonio, for providing the overview of your Earth observation requirements gathering activities. The requirements gathering is a very important step to ensuring that OCRE provides the services that are most needed by researchers. Now, David Heyns will provide us with the tender latest developments, the next steps, as well as funding opportunities available and how you can specifically benefit from them. So, David, you have the floor.
Rob, are you guys able to hear me?
Hi, I think you have to switch your presentation screen application to the PowerPoint one.
Okay, I am showing PowerPoint.
Yeah.
Have you got it?
Okay. Yes, we see your delivery path slide.
Okay, great, guys. Yeah, sorry about that little technical hitch there. And thank you to the guys who presented on the requirements gathering. As you'll see, there are a lot of drivers, legitimate drivers behind the OCRE project. OCRE uses the 2014-24 EU Procurement Directive. And essentially what this means is that procurement is enabled across the European region with a group of entities, cross-border centralized purchasing body. It is important to the project and the tender process that we do deliver a framework that can be used in all countries fairly easily. So we are busy doing a lot of work around checking those boxes and making sure that the framework that is delivered is appropriate. Demand aggregation and tender groups sign up at September the 12th. Okay, the NREN, the National Research and Education Network, is a really important player in this project across Europe. The NRENs are signing up currently and making us aware of their member institutions. Research groups who are domain specific and specifically focused on certain research disciplines will be signing up by September 12th. And by registering, there is no formal commitment for the institutions to purchase services. It purely legitimizes the institution in terms of being able to procure these services at some point. So it is an expression of interest. The tender will be launched in October. There will be separate tender tracks in terms of cloud and earth observation. The cloud suppliers will send in a bid in response to the tender by a fixed date, and we will ensure that the suppliers do check the many boxes in terms of compliance and the appropriate services, the delivery of the appropriate services. From an earth observation perspective, we've taken an approach that will allow suppliers of earth observation kind of tools and platforms to sign up throughout the lifespan of the system. Efficient delivery. So the GEANT cloud delivery ecosystem, you can reach 10,000 institutes across Europe through 40 NRENs. And the current GEANT infrastructure as a service framework that has been running through since 2016 proves this. You know, the NRENs are a key component in the delivery of these frameworks, and we are using the current framework in a number of countries. It's been proven from a procurement perspective, and these frameworks are kind of key to delivering these services. Tender inclusion and aggregated demand. Research institutions can establish buyer groups and buy together via a lead buyer. As I said, the NRENs will register their member institutes in the tender and can buy in bulk. And then individual research and education institutions can buy resources. You know, and then obviously CERN is a big player in this. It is key to this. And these big buyer groups will be signing up for the tender. Okay, the first consumption route is once the framework is launched, the institutions and buyer groups can buy with their own money. So essentially, you're consuming services. We are petitioning the suppliers of these services for the best possible deal, for discounts, for cloud discounts and support. So it will be preferable to consume off of the framework in terms of these services, but also, as I said, the procurement path is so much easier. So you can buy resources directly or via call-off agreements through a direct award, in which case you select a supplier and you use the contract as is. If you are looking for services that are not listed on the framework, you can run a mini competition and request these services from the suppliers to see which supplier you should actually be procuring from in terms of your specific need. The call-off agreements and payments are between the institution or lead buyer and the supplier, and OCRE is not involved in the money flow at all. The second consumption route is through the European Commission Cloud Adoption Fund. And that means that there are funds available for researchers to consume through the framework off of these platforms. There will be, over the duration of the project, 4.75 million euro for the consumption of cloud services and 4.7 million euro for the consumption of solutions in terms of Earth observation. These will be made available in different tracks for different user types, researchers, institutes, buyer groups, through different batches of funding, which are made at different points in time over the project. The second consumption route, there will be some funds available from September 2019, which means that there will be some early adoption funds that will drive consumption off of the current GEANT IaaS Infrastructure as a Service framework agreement, just to kind of stimulate tender participation. There will be 200,000 euro in vouchers for individual researchers made available through Eurodoc, the Marie Curie Association, and the EOSC Hub project. It will be to their discretion as to the researchers that they make these vouchers available to. The vouchers will be between 1,000 and 5,000 euro in cloud credits, and to be spent on IaaS offerings from the selected suppliers, as I said, in the current GEA's IaaS framework. These will be available from the beginning of the academic year. And then 150,000 euro in vouchers will be available for institutions who participate in OCRE and indicate their interest before September 12th through a web form. There will be 30 vouchers of 5,000 euro in cloud credits available across a number of suppliers for research use. It'll be spent on the current IaaS offerings, as I said, and institutions are required to provide feedback on usage. This will inform the project on what needs to take place in the future in terms of supply selection and the kinds of services that we need to focus on. OCRE will randomly select the 30 different institutions who will receive vouchers if this 30 voucher initiative is oversubscribed. So we will run a legitimate lottery in terms of deciding who the different institutions who receive the vouchers will be. Okay, to kickstart adoption, raise awareness, stimulate tender participation. Okay, 2.2 million euro will be available in adoption funds for buyer groups. And this is kind of focused in 2020, once the framework is active, to be spent on suppliers that actually win a spot on the framework. And this will also be supplied as 50% co-funding from the OCRE project. In other words, the researchers or research organizations will need to spend on the framework, and the OCRE tender will match that spend. So that's another consumption route that is in place to stimulate adoption of the framework. How do you participate? So essentially, the NRENs are signing up. There will be NRENs in most of the countries across Europe that are participating, that will be providing services either as a referrer or an underwriter, and you will be signing call of agreements through your NREN, or by creating or participating in a tender buyer group, or by signing up individually to procure directly from the framework. This can all be done via the OCRE website. We are on track to release the sign-up forms for tender participation later this week, and we do require that you register before September the 12th. Okay, if we just have a quick look at the timeline of the project so far, we gathered requirements from the research community, as you heard in the previous presentations. And as I said, you know, this was an important part of the project, and it clearly demonstrated demand for such a framework. We are currently drafting a version of the tender document, and we expect feedback from the suppliers on the draft tender by the 12th of September. That will enable us to submit the tenders in October 2019. And that will enable us to make the framework available in early 2020. The cloud tender will be completed with 4-year framework agreements in place. So at any point in the following 4 years, you will be able to secure a contract with a supplier in terms of service. So that's pretty much the timeline so far. We are on track. We are on track to launch the tender in October. So I think at this point, I'll just hand back to Rob for facilitating the Q&A session.
Thank you very much, David. So now, as we enter into the Q&A session, I invite you to please type in your questions on the chat box below. And meanwhile, perhaps you can take the first question from Chris Lawrence. How do you show or even guarantee the GDPR compliance of the offered commercial clouds? David, perhaps this is something you'd like to handle?
Okay, I'm happy to take that. So each one of the suppliers of commercial cloud services on the framework will have checked a number of boxes in terms of meeting standards and being able to deliver on the requirements of GDPR. And this is a really, really important point, because I think, you know, how secure commercial cloud platforms are is often a stumbling block for early adoptions. They are completely secure, and if they've checked these boxes and they're on this framework, they will be safely consumable. The big commercial platforms, they secure your data under contract under huge penalty. And just the size and the scale of these platforms means that they have a lot of opportunity in terms of threat surveillance, in terms of securing your workload, and in terms of complying with the GDPR regulations. Honestly, cloud workloads in a commercial cloud environment are very, very secure, and possibly far more so than you could possibly secure a workload in an on-premise data center.
Okay, thank you very much. Question from Sean DeWitt. Are the vouchers tied to a specific provider?
So I'll pick this up as well. The 150,000 euros that will be made available in September through OCRE. There will be suppliers on the existing GEANT IS framework competing for those vouchers. They need to show us that they can in fact process vouchers, and once we have distributed those vouchers, we will then kind of make them available to the 30 researchers.
Thank you. Are there any other questions from the audience? Just feel free to type in if you have any doubts.
Rob, may I, since Joao from CERN, just in addition, what David said very well about the GDPR compliance. I don't know if the term compliance is the correct one, but yes, one way that the cloud providers and most of the cloud providers are demonstrating compliance, or they are demonstrating that they adhere to this legislation, is by being ISO certified, so ISO 27001. And so most of them, and this will be part of the tender requirements, of course, this alignment with certification to be able to demonstrate GDPR compliance. Just to add the small detail.
Thank you. We've had a question regarding the slides. Yes, we will be publishing the slides within today, maximum by tomorrow, as well as a recording of this webinar. A question from Martin Hess. Will the voucher mechanism be also part of the large cloud tender? Joao, is this something you'd like to address?
Well, I can talk about what the intentions from CERN are on the. So as probably you got from the presentations, there's a framework that is being run by GEANT that will establish the minimum requirements, and David can expand on that. And I think, I would believe that voucher and the ability to offer voucher mechanisms will be part of the tender. Then the way this then gets more tailored in the call-offs will be up to the people up to the organizations that run the call-offs. You can have probably vouchers as part of the delivery, but vouchers mixed with reserved instances or vouchers mixed with other types of delivery. But I think essentially is what we are looking at.
Can I add something on
Yes.
these vouchers? The project will also have what we call the technical business platform that will allow the distribution of vouchers for, we have two waves of distribution. So for individual researcher and institution that ask for vouchers that are 100% funded by the EC. So users can register on this platform, request a voucher, and then get the voucher code that can be redeemed on the OCRE selected providers. So there are dedicated tracks for vouchers.
Okay. We have a question from Heidi Rutten. What is the committed spend for the OCRE Cloud and EO tender? Perhaps Antonio, you could start first regarding the Earth observation part.
Yes, well, there is half of the budget that is available for OCRE will be spent on EO services, and the other half will be for cloud commercial services. And it has been divided in tracks, 3 different tracks. But I mean, we have some rough estimation at the moment. Of course, the subdivision in the specific tracks that say individual researcher or institution on buyer group may change according to the consumption. Just to give you some figure for the EO, we have 4.75 million after with the results of the tender, and at the moment we foresee to have almost 1 million for individual user, 1.5 million for institution, and 2.25 million for co-funding.
Rob, if I can just take this opportunity, in terms of total contract value of the kind of OCRE framework, what the NRENs will be doing fairly shortly, I think, is actually reaching out into the community, the education and research community in Europe, just to try and develop an understanding of how researchers see themselves consuming these services and what the demand could be across the lifespan of this tender contract. And that will certainly inform the project as to what we anticipate the total spend on this framework to be.
Okay. Going into the next question. So Chris Lawrence is requesting further information. Please do reach out to us at info@ocre-project.eu. Otherwise, you can also contact us through the website. I'm handling all these inquiries personally, so just feel free to drop us a line or contact us or contact us form, and then we'll direct you to the right person. Jose Franco asks, will OCRE make available templates to NRENs, gather the institution's needs? Jose, I think, could you clarify your question a bit more? I'm going to give you the floor. Just a second. Jose, you're unmuted. Could you please restate your question?
Rob, I think if I can pick this up, I think I know what
Yeah.
Jose is referring to.
Sure, go ahead.
I think So what we are going to try and do is set up, we collaborate with the cloud managers at the different NRENs every second Friday. And we are going to set up a collaboration between the NRENs, which allow the NRENs that have already reached out into their communities in terms of cloud consumption, in terms of the kinds of services they're looking to procure, to see if those NRENs can't possibly share the way in which they went about reaching out into the community, whether they went out with surveys or questionnaires, or what it was they asked of their communities and country. And we are going to try and drive that collaboration between the NRENs in the upcoming weeks.
Thank you, David. Heidi's asking if the questions and answers can be issued in writing after the webinar to all the participants. We'll have to see. I mean, I think at the moment we're answering them as we can. If you have any specific inquiry that needs, some written clarification or something in writing, just send us an email or contact us through the contact us form. I'm looking at them almost daily, so we'll make sure that your questions are addressed. Okay, so we have a question from Alice Rochak. How do I find if I'm involved in the requirements collection and in foundation? I wasn't asked by any survey. I think, Alice, you'd like to be involved in the requirements gathering. Is that right? Okay, so the surveys are available on our website. They're linked there. So if you'd like to, for example, respond to the commodity cloud survey, they're there. So if you go to our website, you'll see in the right end of the menu, you'll see surveys. So the requirements gathering is still ongoing, and you're very much welcome to provide input. Are there any other questions? Okay. I think if there are no further questions, or if some question comes to you later on after the webinar, our channels are always open for inquiries. So please don't hesitate to reach out to us for more information. I think with that, we can end. So just please remember that the slides will be available maximum by tomorrow. We'll get them out as soon as possible today, but the recording does need a bit of time to process. So the webinar slides and the recording will be available in the same webinar page on the website. So I am going to send actually a link to the chat for everyone to see. Just a second. Okay, so what you have there is the link to the event page in the website. That's where you'll find the slides for download and for viewing on SlideShare, as well as the recording maximum by tomorrow. Thank you very much, everyone. Looking forward to hearing from you soon. Bye.
Thanks, Rob. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.